Sabrina 2000s comic, issue 61. Harvey gets invited to Amy's Halloween party, and somehow he's dense enough to be surprised that Sabrina wasn't invited. Sabrina tells him not to act so surprised. Lampshading it doesn't make it believable writing. Shinji got invited too. Wait, why? Shockingly, Shinji refuses to hang out with Sabrina instead of going to the party because it's gonna be a huge party. Does he care about her or not? What about the ending of the previous story? This only comes from the fact that he's been established to be a rule-breaking criminal by now, but he still wants to date her, when he could have easily been written to drop that after last issue where she didn't want to rule-break with him. Fortunately, Harvey says that his invite says he's allowed a guest, so he can let her come there as his date. Shinji wonders why he didn't think of that. Lampshading the forced writing doesn't make it okay. Why would Amy even let people have guests if she doesn't want Sabrina to be at her party? She thanks Harvey, and they argue over the possibility of going to the costume party dressed like witches. Harvey wonders if he's missing something because of how specific her suggestion was. Amy bores me by blathering for a long time about the fact that her older cousin will be spinning records for a party and this new girl is into fortune telling and says she's a witch. She even saw her do some crazy things. But you'd think she would know that it would be better to not expose her powers. But apparently Shinji taught her that it was okay to expose magic. Since when did she talk this much in front of them? Could I please actually see the things she was talking about? That obviously would have been a lot better to look at. There's nothing more soul-drainingly boring than a wall of text like this. This is just telling us stuff that I have every reason to believe the story would have told me naturally anyways. It's not like the exposition dump in the Knuckles comic that explained why the Dingo and Echidna dimensions started merging and destroying each other. At least I was talking about something interesting, and there was interesting stuff in the background to look at because of the monitors. I didn't need this panel at all. She says that Sabrina must not be very popular if she hasn't even heard of Guinevere. What the hell kind of name is that? Why was that approved? Is it that or Guinevere? Harvey calls Sabrina cute indirectly, and Sabrina bores the hell out of me with another inner monologue. Finally, she bumps into her and reads her pretentious poem that fell on the floor which mentioned magic. Gwen's irritable with her wanting to get that poem back, and says she's late for class. Sabrina grabs her and calls her out on using her powers in the mortal realm for everyone to see. Gwen immediately gives away that she's not a witch by asking her what she's talking about, when it's immediately self-evident, and she just assumes she's not going to magic class, and Sabrina calls her a fake. After Gwen gets offended by this, Salem tells Sabrina that she goes as a witch every year, and she wants to try a couple more costume stores. Somehow she walks by Gwen when she's walking her dog. It's a big city, that wouldn't happen. Salem says he's seen that dog before and it's not a normal dog. Somehow, Sabrina doesn't believe him and tells him not to be silly. I hate how stupid she is, and she has no charm at all to make up for her stupidity in this comic. At least in the earlier continuities, not only did she use her magic for dozens of good things, but she was trying to stop her Aunt Hilda from doing bad deeds and was calling her out. Now she's not good for anything, so I'm only focused on how stupid she is. He warns Sabrina that the dog is pure evil and tells her to confront it without immediately explaining why he thinks he knows this. It's immediately obvious that he thinks the dog is a supernatural creature. After Gwen goes inside, she's nice to her dog, who acts nice to her. That's sweet. Salem says the dog is hiding something, and she puts Salem next to it and abandons him to do some shopping like a drooling moron. I have a question. Why don't these witches have access to a magic detector? Why don't they just hold it up to the dog, just in case? Go figure, Salem was right. The dog says boo, and somehow says that Salem remembers him when he had no evidence of that. The dog says that centuries ago, he and Salem were in a bitter rivalry over who would take over the other realm first. Other realm? Salem wanted to take over the mortal realm, because it'd be an easy target. To be fair, it was never said that he didn't try to take over the magic realm as well. But it was a fair assumption that he'd be too occupied with trying to take over the mortal realm where there were almost no witches to oppose him. They had armies and were caught when they were so close. Why did it take until after they had raised armies? Because we know the witches can spy on all the other witches. But what are the chances that Gwen's dog is this thing? It cuts to Sabrina in the car with Harvey on Halloween night. How does he think Salem is just a prop? He'd catch him moving at some point, wouldn't he? I guess he doesn't have to breathe because he literally is a stuffed animal in this form, except with a CPU for a brain. But still, if you're a person, you're not going to stay completely still. It's just too hard to resist moving even a little. He says he wants to go say hi to some of the guys from his team. Shinji brought a date. I don't care. They get told that Gwen's doing fortune telling. She's throwing cards around, and the witches are suspicious of her. I guess it's her dog doing it. Landra shows up, and Shinji says they can trust her. Sabrina doesn't trust her anymore, just because she started dating a guy that she wasn't dating herself. That's Sabrina's problem. She's being possessive of a guy that clearly proved he wasn't right for her. The only way she and Shinji could work out is if Shinji decided to humor her and not force her to do stuff she's not comfortable with anymore. Sabrina's wearing a surprisingly skimpy outfit. Amy acts disappointed with Harvey and runs away. I don't know what she expected. It took until now for Salem to figure out that Gwen is using magic by using her dog. Sabrina says that the dog should have lost all of her magic when she was turned into an animal like him. He only lost his magic after the comic stopped being in the animated series. Why does this writer have no respect for continuity? This is even worse than Flynn in terms of constant baffling continuity errors. The writer literally doesn't care about the past continuity. Literally pretending that it didn't happen. I do prefer the idea that he lost his powers when he's transformed into a cat because it makes more sense. Just don't treat me like a forgetful idiot. Why is Sabrina even hesitating to believe Salem? She clearly saw magic. She realizes that the dog is like a puppet master. Landra says that every move the dog makes is mimicked by Gwen. And somehow she doubts she even realizes that her magic is being channeled through her by that dog. I have a question. How does Gwen not hear them talk about her? Well, they're at a party. Maybe it's just that full of conversation noises. How does the dog still have magic? Even a character in the story had better logic than the writer. Sabrina predictably wants to remove the dog and wants Shinji's help. But it's still her beloved dog. She'd still be sad about this. Landra randomly calls Sabrina childish for this and calls Gwen a poor girl. Huh? That's it. This is bad writing of her character. She was nothing but loyal to her and in sync with her before Tanya Del Rio. Now she is literally just the person who disagrees with her at every opportunity. If anything, Sabrina is the mature one here for wanting to make the magic stop at all costs. Because magic is supposed to be kept a secret, and this is exposing it. So you'd think if the council cares about hiding magic, they would have instantly stepped in. Because they see everything that happens. Shouldn't Landra be worried about that? Witches can conjure up anything, including a replacement dog for her, so she would never notice it's not her dog. Sabrina warned her that Gwen was a jerk to her the other day. Well, to be fair, Sabrina bumped into her when she was late for class, and her papers went flying everywhere. So of course she was mad at her. It's just unfortunate that her being mad at her as her first interaction with her made her come off like a bully character. And the magic was real, so of course she'd be upset at being called a fake. Except she has no right to be upset about it if there's even a part of her that knows that she isn't a witch. Sabrina's told that it could have been a misunderstanding. How? You want to be able to follow the logic of the characters. Why did anyone praise the storyline of the mangas as the best thing that Sabrina Comics has had in a while again? This is the best one so far, and it's still moving at the speed of molasses. Does it really need to have this much dialogue? Salem warns Sabrina that you don't want to mess with Corwin. She tells Shinji that he knows what to do. I don't think so. Or the plot would end in next panel. What the hell is it with Sabrina never listening to Salem when he's warning her to be responsible and not do something? He's older than her by hundreds of years. Shinji decides to run off with the dog. And Landra says this is stupid. Technically she's right, but she should be written to explain herself properly. What she could say is that 1. This convoluted plan that's ignoring the simple solution is going to disappoint the people who wanted to see the floating cards, and Landra asks her if she feels better now. Shinji should have removed the dog's powers, or at least frozen them in time. I guess I'm forced to assume that considering how stupid Sabrina is, she's too stupid to just get rid of the dog's powers with a single point. I guess the witch has to decide to give up their powers themselves. Because I remember in the sitcom that a troublemaking teenager witch was told by Sabrina to point and send all of his magic juice into a jar himself. There's a reason Sabrina didn't do it, but that's the sitcom, not this. But this is the Sabrina so stupid that she thinks she can't teleport herself. If spell freeze is illegal, then I guess getting rid of the dog's powers would get her reprimanded by the council. Sabrina froze Mr. Marklow in time in the animated series comic, so this isn't an advanced witch technique. And if the writer didn't want me to think of that as canon to this, well, too bad. She shouldn't have started the comic with Landra in the story. They could have easily pointed at Corwin and frozen her. That's what's stupid. Now that Shinji's run off with the dog, he could literally freeze her. Shinji shockingly risks Sabrina's safety, making her hold Corwin, who eventually zaps her with electricity. What took so long for that to happen then? You know, you could have cast a perilous spell on the thing. Gwen angst is alone about being seen as a fraud, when it makes no sense that she would be seen as a fraud because people won't forget that she was using magic a second ago just because she's not using magic anymore. Then she witnesses Corwin's soul escaping the dog easily, saying that her hiding place has grown old and it's time for another. She fortunately reveals that she was never actually caught by the council. But the council can see everything that happens because of their spy witches. That's why someone was aware of Sabrina's spell freeze spell. If even Sabrina was spied on, she would have been too. Or am I actually supposed to believe it's going with the dumb 70s comic thing where spy witches are sent to spy on witches in person on Earth itself? Well, they wouldn't have to miss anything though, because witches can go intangible and invisible and fly, so there's no reason they would have to stop following them. She says that she was a master shape taker. Wouldn't every witch be? Why is she talking as if only she could be like that? Esmeralda had no problem transforming Salem a lot. When the council put her on their most wanted list, she fled to the mortal realm and possessed many things. Would she have been doomed the second they decided to arrest her? They're witches, they would just instantly warp her to the council. Like how Sabrina instantly warped a hypnotist to her in the 70s comic. And why does she look this green demonic way? She's a witch, not a monster. I don't buy that anybody would want to take this form. People think that they're the heroes of their own story. Even if she wanted to look intimidating, she would still want to look pretty. She would just wear a black dress. Sabrina tells her that she basically imprisoned herself so the council would thank her. But she still has her powers, so no, they wouldn't. How are her powers weaker in the mortal world? Since when is a witch weaker in the mortal world? There's never been any indication of that. Once again, it's establishing retroactive continuity with no respect for the earlier issues. This writer is the most amateur writer so far. Corwin says that she was strengthening her skills by practicing through Gwen, making fun of her. So why was she telling Sabrina any of this? If she was lonely and wanted someone to monologue to, she could have just conjured up a person. She could have warped away from Sabrina a long time ago. Sabrina creates blue magic around her hands, and Corwin says she works too hard to be caught by a teenager. If the writing wasn't completely insulting and clueless, logically she'd have been caught instantly. What was stopping Sabrina from pointing at her and instantly freezing her in time? After she told her everything she'd want to hear. How on earth did she succeed at running away? What was the point of drawing her to do that blue magic thing that's totally unclear if it didn't electrocute her? Somehow. Sabrina is an omnipotent witch. There's a million different things she could easily do to her instantly. She could turn her into a rock. I'm not told that this woman's immune to magic. Why not just instantly have her lose her powers for a little bit, so that I'm not wondering the entire time why she doesn't use magic against Corwin? It's so obvious the tension is fake. It was immediately obvious that this writer, more than any of the other writers, can't really keep track of all the different powers Sabrina has. Even if I had only experienced a sitcom, I probably would have done a better job. Sabrina thinks that if she uses magic to try to catch her, people might see, "Bitch, you just tried to use magic to catch her. What is slowing you down?" She can just erase people's memories, so what's the big deal about using magic around them? Why does she think she's not strong enough? It wouldn't be hard for her to turn Corwin into a frog. She could make her float in the air, trapped, unable to move. That happened to Lilith. It's out of character for Sabrina to think for so long while doing nothing instead of just immediately using magic. So many plots wouldn't have happened if she was like this, and it's not like she's gone off to college. This is too early for her to develop past being impulsive. Corwin runs through the costume party, and someone compliments her costume, of course. And we see someone with a crappy Sonic costume. Corwin somehow expects me to believe that she doesn't have the strength to telezap. Huh? What she should say is that she exhausted her powers already from showing off in Gwen's body. And we have been told that they can exhaust their magic before. Why does someone in the crowd ask if this is a murder mystery game if hopefully there's no murder? Sabrina worries that Corwin could have taken the shape of anything in this room. Gee, too bad she can't cast a spell to locate her, like Sabrina did in Little Sabrina. Of all the disguises she could have taken, why would she disguise herself as something that can't move? She should have explained that she can sense witches with a spell. How does she not have the skill to trap a sorceress? It'd be as easy as turn her into a frog. That's the one spell everyone knows witches for. How stupid does the writer think I am? She has the power to trap the pumpkin, go figure. And lucky for her, she was right in a random guess. You would think that the amount of magic it would take to change your entire molecular structure would be greater than the amount of magic it would take to just point yourself to instantly fly out of the room. She wants to get this to the Magic Council, quick. She wants to telezap from the backyard. Does she mean teleport? I wish she just said that. She apologizes to Harvey and thanks him for a great night. She looks around to make sure no one will see her, and then sees Gwen, who doesn't notice her. She decides to talk to her because she's crying, when common sense would dictate that she warp the pumpkin to the Witches' Council room first. Not to mention how likely it is that Gwen would still hate her and treat her like shit anyways, at least as far as Sabrina knows. Sabrina apologizes to her, blaming herself for what she's feeling right now. For all she knows, this would just confuse Gwen. She says she knew the magic wasn't her own. She did? How? For all she knew, witches just develop powers a lot later in life, and she was adopted. For all she knows, one of her parents is not actually her parent. Sabrina says she liked her poem, so she still has a gift. I don't see the point of poetry, so I don't respect that. I do love her design though. Gwen says she didn't mean to be rude and was just in a bad mood and took it out on her, and got embarrassed because she read her poem. Sabrina says she'd love to have a talent, but somehow she thinks there isn't a single thing she's really good at. Has the writer even read any of the issues before her? She went back in time. She tells Sabrina that she knows she's a witch, and Salem filled her in on the rest. He did? Wait, why doesn't the council instantly know about this and punish them for it? Because they can see everything, so they saw a spell freeze. She says that she already believed in magic before this happened. She somehow could always feel its presence around her. She'd have to have at least some witches in her family then. Then she talks in an overly flowery, pretentious way for a teenage girl. Sabrina is just impressed that she talks poetically, being unrelatable. She says she's always kept magic a secret, and explains that she was only showing off with magic to get people to like her. Then she didn't really care about hiding magic. I guess it's official. The spy witches don't see everything that every witch can. It turns out the side effect of Corwin possessing her for so long is that the dog can talk now. Huh? Of all the different magical effects that it could have had, why would it have that? Salem fortunately explains that some magical residue was left behind, so now she might be a bit of a chatterbox. She says she wants something better than dry kibble, and she likes chasing squirrels. It actually cuts in the next scene after that. I'm not sure if this is a good thing for her. She likes magic, but why does this dog have to be a chatterbox? Granted, she did want to tell her what was on her mind for her entire life. The council is impressed that Sabrina brought Corwin to her, so they praise her a lot. I suppose it was worth it because it was just one page, and it's satisfying after they kept insulting her. I didn't want to see another council government again after the Council of Acorns, but it still feels like fantasy taking advantage of it being a council of witches because they're all women, and look the way they do. I don't even remember how the Witches' Council looked like in the sitcom, so they must have all looked like generic people. So this is slightly better for getting me invested in the world of witches. But at least one of them wearing a witch costume would have been better. Sabrina tells Salem that he got a girl calling him, and he complains that Pumpkin just called him 2 hours ago. He lets her talk to her about a show on TV for a half an hour because he has a lot of free time. I just feel sorry for him. Why can't he be written to like this? Ugh, I can't wait for the comic to stop having one story drag on for the entire issue. There's a reason this wasn't the case early on. I just feel drained at the end. This story was about a witch who used to compete with Salem for world domination, coincidentally deciding to go and possess the dog of a brand new student to Sabrina's school, and she uses magic through that new student, so she shows off in front of people. And Sabrina spends way too long dealing with this evil spirit Corwin, when logically she would just use a single spell to solve the problem. So I can't take this seriously at all. Why is she monologuing to Sabrina at all? This just seems so unlikely. Of all the different places that Corwin could have been on planet Earth, why would she be here? Why wouldn't the Witches' Council have instantly stopped Corwin?